Hello, welcome to Lesson 2 of the Society Inside Trust Toolkit. I'm Hilary Sutcliffe, and today we're going to look at the 5 important things you need to know about trust. What we'll cover is why being trustworthy is more important than focusing on trust, how trust is related to expectations and perceptions, that trust is dynamic and more likely to come about through reciprocity, and how it's messy and highly dependent on context. What you'll do is explore these key factors about trust, consider how these might apply in your own organisational process, and reflect on how to use this knowledge in your work. So, number 1. The first thing you need to know about trust is that it is an outcome, not a message, not a slogan. It's an outcome of someone believing that you are trustworthy. Also, it's a bit like love and happiness. The more doggedly you pursue it for its own sake, the more elusive it might become. Trust me is a bit like love me. You sort of think, no. And research has shown that the dogged pursuit of happiness doesn't actually make you happy, which is a bit disappointing. But love, happiness and trust have another thing in common. They are more likely to come about as a result of attention to something greater than ourselves, particularly the good of others. Number 2. When we trust a person, a process, an organisation, even a government, we have a hope that our expectation of what will happen, what they will do or not, will be right. This expectation might be quite narrowly defined. You don't distrust your plumber because they can't mend your computer, or the Civil Aviation Authority for failing to regulate the banks. Although you might lose trust in your government more generally for that one. You can also trust that someone will try to rip you off and so not give them the opportunity and be right about that. But if our expectations are not fulfilled, it chips away at our inclination to trust. There's also the case where our expectations are wrong, that we are expecting something which was never going to happen. A mismatch of expectation between parties can also give rise to distrust. Number 3. I loved finding out this bit. Trust first, and you are more likely to get trust back. I enjoy telling my relentlessly pessimistic husband, who's certain that everyone in the world is poised to do him harm, about this one. But being more trusting as a default makes people more likely to be more trustworthy and also to trust you in return. Also, trust is a two-way thing. How you act towards me shapes my inclination to trust you. So, distrusting from the outset makes you more likely to be disrespectful of me, defensive, or uncooperative yourself. And this too is more likely to be reciprocated. This opens up lots of interesting questions and ideas for everything from social justice to regulation. If people can be trusted, if you trust them first, then what? So, we've seen that trust is an outcome, something that's bestowed on one to another, and that it's based on an alignment with our hopes and expectations. All fairly straightforward so far. The third thing you need to know about trust, that is who we trust and why, is much messier and difficult to nail, a cause and effect than you might hope. Some people are more genetically more trusting than others. Doesn't it feel like optimists and pessimists are born as well as shaped that way by experience? Then there are the heuristics and the biases we all have specifically and generally, things like loss aversion, optimism bias, which shape our speedy evaluation of who or what to trust. Even levels of hormones seem to play a part, though what aspect of that is not clear. Upbringing is important. Cults, for example, have a very narrow view about whose opinion can be trusted, usually the head guy and God. Whereas those brought up in diverse cultures are more widely trusting. Whether our trust has been well placed in the past or not matters. Bad experiences make us less trusting in the same situation, but interestingly, not necessarily in different situations. Context matters a lot. The culture in which you're brought up or live now, what happened recently, all shapes our view. Our friends, influences, and what media we use increasingly help shape who we see as trustworthy and who we don't, and our perceptions of the benefits and risks of any decision we make to trust or not to trust. Our worldview matters, our identity. I'm an environmentalist, a tennis fan, an artist, an individualist. Our politics particularly seems to be growing in importance in shaping who or what we trust. And then finally, we get to the things you can do to shape someone's decision or whether or not to trust you. What do you do to earn trust or cause distrust? So, you might well ask, where does this messy, fragmented view of trust lead us? To be honest, coming to this conclusion confused me for a while. But what it does for me is remind me that everyone is different. They have lots of different reasons for thinking and acting the way they do, for trusting or distrusting the way they do, and most of that is hidden. We should not be too quick to jump to conclusions about behaviours based on our own experiences, because others have different experiences, a different mindset, a different worldview. This leads us to consider one thing. Perhaps what we need to do, above all, is practice empathy for others. Number 5. So this is a lot to take in. Given all this, what can people, organisations, processes do if they want to earn trust? Where to even start? Like many others, I was very inspired to read the work of renowned philosopher and trust expert Baroness Honora O'Neill. She tells us, the question how to restore trust is on everybody's lips. Well, she says, the answer's pretty obvious. First, be trustworthy. Second, provide good evidence that you are trustworthy. So that's number 5. Start with being trustworthy. That's all very well, but what does that look like? Where do I even start to know what it is to be trustworthy? All is not lost. The thinking on trust shows that there are 7 signals of trustworthiness to help guide you. And more on that in the next lesson. But let's wrap up this lesson with some fun exercises.